I do. You, Stefan, take me to be your lawfully wedded cat wife? What? You don't. You'd rather sleep? You'd rather sleep? Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Allie. I have a channel that's mostly been about makeup so far, but I'm in the process of creating some different content. So yeah, today I'm going to be doing a tutorial over this look right here. This is a wedding look that it can be worn to your divorce settlement. It can be worn for your date with your new boyfriend. I don't know, it can be worn for anything, but this is a wedding series, so it's also for the wedding, a wedding tutorial. So yeah, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to see more wedding videos, and yeah, let's just get started. I'm gonna start with primer because I always do, otherwise I'll forget. But also, if you start with primer and then do your eyes, it helps to let the primer sink into your skin because you don't want anything like sitting on top of your skin, otherwise the foundation is going to sit on top of your skin and then separate. So for primer, I'm going to use the Clean Slate Timeless Smoothing Primer from Tarte. It is one that is in a pot. It looks like this. And what I like about this is that it minimizes the look of pores but also smooths out any texture. So I take about that much. I might grab some more. And I put it on the areas where I have the most trouble, which is the four corners of my face basically. I like to kind of press it into the skin. The good thing about Tarte is that they're a very natural brand, so you don't really have to worry about like being allergic or anything like that. I'm not saying that that won't happen, but it's less of a worry. And I think this makes a big difference. Maybe you don't think it does at home, but I do, so that's what matters. And then the next thing I'm going to do is something that not a lot of people do. It's something that I personally recommend because I know on my wedding day I was very tired, and I know that weddings are super stressful, and that is color correcting. I think color correcting, especially under your eyes, is super important. I don't personally color correct any like redness because normally my redness is caused by breakouts, and any color correcting just kind of takes away the redness, but it makes the actual bump more prominent. I'm more worried about the texture of it versus the redness of it. So I'll show you guys how to minimize that as well, because as you guys know, if you watch any of my videos, I have texture. It's something I constantly talk about. So I just have texture. So I'm gonna show you what I use to color correct. The color corrector that I personally use is the Tarte Amazonian Clay Under Eye Corrector. It is a thicker formula. This isn't going to show you exactly because I love it. But it is on the thicker side, so if you have fine lines, this can kind of sink into them because the more product you have under your eyes, if you have fine lines, it can start to look a little bit cakey. So like I said, color correcting is kind of a personal choice. It's something that I recommend, but it's something that not everyone is into, so I just want to point that out. And this brush is disgusting, but in order to disperse the product onto my face, I use a Sonia Kashuk concealer. But again, if you are not into color correcting, and also if you don't have under eye circles, then you really don't have anything to worry about. I do, so I like to do that. And I also get like purple in the kind of socket portion of my eye, so I put the most product there and then just drag it out because I'm less blue on the outside. You can see, I think it makes a big difference as far as color. It does cancel out the purple. But another thing that I would recommend, because I'm actually going to recommend this to on your eyelids because I personally have really oily eyelids. That's probably the oiliest part of my face. So I don't like to use anything like Shadow Insurance or Primer Potion. Instead, I use the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. You can also use this to color correct, especially if you're my shade or lighter, because the lightest shade that they have is light, and as you can see, it's really not lighter than I am. And as you'll see when I put this on my eyelids, it does cancel out the redness on the eyelids because it is a yellower tone. So if you don't want a lot of product on your under eyes, you can use this as well. This is lighter than the Tarte Amazonian Clay. Something else I'm going to do that is mandatory is something I saw James Charles do on Tati, and something I see James Charles do a lot in his tutorials, and that is putting concealer on your nose. That is a place that foundation is constantly rubbing off on me. So I've been using this technique and I really like it. The one that I'm going to use is the Tarte Shape Tape. It's the one that I'm actually going to use on my eyes, under my eyes as well. I don't need a lot. I literally just take a swipe, and that's actually probably too much, to be honest. And I'm just going to blend it out with a damp beauty blender. This isn't necessary, but it's just nice if you have certain areas that foundation rubs off on. And James Charles actually uses a lot more than this. I just didn't feel the need to use that much. Okay, now that we've done all this, I'm going to move on to the eyes, but I am going to be using a palette that isn't available anymore, so I do want to give a couple more alternatives to palettes that are similar. The palette that I'm going to be using in this specific tutorial is the LORAC Mego Pro 3, and the reason I'm going to use this is because it has so many color variations. If you're a makeup artist and this ever becomes available again, like on HSN or QVC, I highly recommend it because you get a really good variety of shades. And the shimmers in here are amazing. I don't recommend glitter pigment for a wedding day simply because it can flake off and get a little bit crumbly. But the mattes in here are amazing, and then they also have pressed pigment. So if you want a more sparkly look, you can get that without getting something that's going to crumble on your eyes. But because this isn't available anymore, so for those of you that don't have it, some alternatives to that. Number one would be the Too Faced Semi-Sweet Chocolate Bar and the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbon palette. Both have a good variety of shades, and this eye look is going to be more cool toned, so keep that in mind. I will post a warm tone look at some point, but these are two very good cool tone palettes that offer a very good variety of shades. Another one that I've talked about before, I've heard just a couple of other people talk about, but it doesn't really get hyped a lot, and that's the Studio Makeup On The Go palette. This was something that came in a BoxyCharm, and so I was really shocked at how much I use this and how much I like this. But this has a variety of purple cool tone shades, and I just think it's a really great palette. The only shade in here that isn't great is this one, but with a mixing medium and some glitter glue, you can make it work. And then lastly, a palette that is still in stock but probably won't be in stock for much longer is the Carly Bible palette. I've used this in tutorials as well. And again, it just offers some really pretty purple tones and then some nice shimmer shades and also highlights in here. So I just wanted to mention that before I got started because I know that the palette I'm going to be using isn't available anymore. So I don't want anyone to feel like, you know, this tutorial isn't for them, because there are alternatives. And if you have a palette that is similar to this already, then use that, because I think this is a great palette. So I'm going to get started on the eyes and stop rambling. I'm going to start with the shade Pink Cream in order to set the concealer that I applied to set my eyelids. And then I'm going to go in with the shade Dusty Mauve as a transition shade. I'm just using an e.l.f. fluffy crease brush, and I'm just going to apply that and kind of map out the shape that I want the shadow to be. And I'm doing circular at the ends and swiping on the inner part of my eye. Next, I'm taking this grayish purple shade and I'm applying that underneath the part of my eye that I applied the Dusty Mauve shade. And this will just be to shape out the crease of my eye. I have really hooded eyelids, so I have to shape out my crease on my own. And then I'm going to take the shade Eggplant and really focus that on the outer part of my eyes. And then I'm going to take a smaller brush on the outer corner to really focus that in circular motions. For the shimmery eyeshadows, I am going to take a mixing medium. I'm just going to take some Evian water spray. I'm going to spray the brush before I'm not going to spray the brush before. I'm going to dip the brush into the product and then spray it to help it stick. This glitter shade is a little bit warm tone. I know I said this was a cool tone look, but I just really like the color and I like the way it looks with everything. So keep that in mind as well. It's not fully cool tone, but it's mostly cool tone. I personally didn't want a wing for my wedding day. I know that some people really like winged eyeliner and they wear it all the time. I feel like for your wedding day, you don't want to necessarily do something different. You want to look like yourself but amplified, and I almost never wear winged liner. So I'm not going to do winged liner. Instead, I'm going to use some black eyeshadow and create like the shape of a wing, but not winged liner. So it's going to be very muted and very faded. And I'm going to use just a black shadow. And you want to make sure that if you decide to line your tight line, that you do it with an eyeshadow that you know is not going to budge. For me, I'm going to use the NYX Slide On, Glide On, Stay On, and definitely a Turn On waterproof eyeliner, but I'm only going to use this at the top. If you generally line your waterline, then feel free to do so. I don't. I'm gonna line mine with a nude eyeliner pencil. And then for my waterline, I'm just going to line it with a nude eyeliner pencil. And since I do have some fallout, I'm just going to lightly brush it away with a very soft brush. And you want to make sure you do that before you start on the face. And if you want, you can wear false lashes. I recommend wearing false lashes without a band, but I'm not going to wear them for this tutorial necessarily. I probably will in the future because I do recommend false lashes if you want something a little bit bolder, and they do open up the eyes really well. I just wanted to do something simple for the first time because I feel like a lot of brides want simplicity, and I know that's what I wanted, but that's not what I necessarily got. So I'm kind of recreating the look that I wanted for my wedding day. So yeah, I'm going to zoom you guys out and show you what I recommend for the face. So the next step is definitely foundation. I'm going to do something a little bit extra, and if you don't want to do this, you don't have to, but I am going to use two foundations, and I'm going to mix two for the inner part of my face, anywhere where there's a little bit of redness, and then for the outer part of my face, I'm going to use just one. But the two that I'm going to mix are the Makeup Forever Ultra HD and the Milani Conceal and Perfect. I want something with a little more full coverage in places where I have some problems. But I really like the Makeup Forever Ultra HD because it's made for flash photography. So I'm going to mix these for just spots on my face that need a little extra help, and then for everything else I'm going to use this by itself. It also, the reason I have to mix them is because this isn't the right shade. If this was the right shade, I would just put this on the inner perimeter and then the Ultra HD on the outer perimeter. And I also recommend using a beauty blender to apply foundation because it does help it sink into the skin, and that's what you want. You don't want anything separating or sitting on top of the skin. So I'm just going to mix these on a small palette, which I'm actually just using an empty blush container. And I'm just taking a tiny bit. I'm not using very much at all. Then I'm going to put it on any area that's a little bit more red. So my cheeks right here get red. But then I'm also going to put it on top of some of my pimples because, again, I don't color correct those areas, but putting a little bit of extra foundation on it does help. And this is actually the spot where you want to brighten, and I'm not doing this in order not to brighten my face. This just also so happens to be the place where I need just a little bit more help. And then I'm going to blend all that out with my damp beauty blender. And for the rest of my face, and actually I'm going to go over everything once again, I'm going to use the Makeup Forever Ultra HD. I'm in the shade Y225 just for a color reference. Next I'm going to conceal, and I'm going to use the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. This is a very full coverage concealer, so you only need a little bit. Just in case you couldn't tell by the amount of subscribers I have, this isn't sponsored by Tarte. I just really like Tarte products. However, in the future, if Tarte wants to sponsor me, now all you OG subscribers will know that I've loved Tarte from the beginning. So you won't be able to say that I just did it for money or fame. Because Tarte is actually the shiz. Cruelty free, no parabens, no sulfates. They're just the bomb. Okay, now this is where you're gonna see me get a little bit crazy. If you've ever watched Patrick Star, you will know that he bakes his entire face because he's a man, he has texture. I'm not a man. Really, I'm not. I'm not a man, or never was I a man, but I still have texture. So I bake my whole face because it is one of the only ways I have found to minimize the look of pores and texture on my face. So if you want to skip this step, if you have porcelain baby doll skin, then feel free to skip this, but that's what I'm going to do. Another thing, I do not recommend using a translucent powder for this step because I feel like no matter what, translucent powders tend to have flashback. I prefer to use powders that have a kind of skin tone light color. If you have a deeper skin tone, I know Cover FX came out with a darker powder, translucent powder. Kat Von D came out with one that is deeper because I know if you have a deeper skin tone, it's so hard to find actual translucent powders without looking ashy or having flashback. So if you are deeper, look for those brands. I'm going to go ahead and bake my face. I'm going to use a damp beauty blender, and I'm also going to put this underneath my eyes. Alright, I'm going to let this sit for just a few minutes and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and if you'll notice, I kind of changed the eyes a little bit. I decided I didn't like the winged out black liner, so instead I took a dark purple and tried to blend it away a little bit, and instead I just winged the whole eyeshadow out a little bit. Now I'm going to brush all that bake away, and to do that, I'm going to use my Too Faced Primed and Poreless powder. So yes, you are adding more powder on top of this, and I am going to swipe just because I'm trying to get all the excess off. But since I have powder on my brush, it shouldn't really swipe any of my existing makeup away. And I am going to spray my face with some setting powder before I put anything else on my face, just to try to eliminate the cakiness, because right now with all the powder it is going to look a little bit cakey. So I'm going to use my setting spray. I'm going to go in with the Urban Decay Deslick setting spray. It's a disgusting bottle, but it'll do. I use quite a bit because I do want those powders to sink in. And since my face is wet, I'm going to go ahead and highlight my face. I'm going to use the Anastasia Glow Kit. I'm going to use the shade Marshmallow. And I'm going to use a fan brush for this. And I'm going to put a little bit on my nose, but not much. And then a little bit on my Cupid's bow, but again, not much. And then a little bit on top of my brows. And then I'm also going to use shade for my inner corner. And I am actually going to take a little bit on my finger and press it into the middle of my eyelid to add some more dimension. And I've actually heard people say that they feel like this highlight isn't long lasting on their skin. So if that's the case, I recommend going in with a liquid highlighter first and then using this one to set it, because that will make it a little bit more long lasting. Since the powders have dried, I am going to contour. I'm going to use the Wet n Wild contouring palette in the shade Dulce de Leche. If you want any video where I contour, this is my all-time favorite contour shade. I'm just going to suck in the cheeks and contour. I'm taking this out a little bit farther than usual just to ensure that everything gets contoured properly. Then I do take it on the temples like so. I'm also going to contour my nose just a hair. And since I already have a pretty thin nose, I'm just going to take it from my brow down like so. Do this a lot on the air so I can show you. But it just creates a slight shadow. You don't want to use a lot of powder for this at all. And then I'll take just like even a smaller amount and put that on the tip of my nose and create kind of a V shape. That's my nose contour. For bronzer, I'm going to use the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer because, again, it's my all-time favorite. And I'm going to take some and bronze up my cheeks. Taking it up like so. Also going to bronze up my forehead a whole lot. I'm going to take that down the neck. For blush, I'm going to use the MAC Melba Blush. This is my favorite blush for events. I always recommend this for brides because it's just a beautiful blush. If you have a deeper skin tone, I still recommend MAC blushes. I recommend going to the MAC counter because as far as companies go, I feel like MAC does a really good job of knowing exactly what's going to work for your specific skin tone. That's why when I went and got this, the lady was very helpful and I was not worried that this would be too dark or anything. I just wasn't sure what the color looked like. I just heard people talk about it on YouTube. She was telling me how good this would look on my skin tone. For a blush topper, I'm going to use just a hair of the Hot Mama blush from The Balm. It's very shimmery, so it'll give you a little bit of a highlighted effect. I focus that a lot right here. But I'm going to take it all the way through, but I just want to make sure I focus it, especially right here. And then I kind of want to be a little more glowy, so I'm going to go in with the shade Butterscotch from Glow Kit. And I'm going to take that Butterscotch shade, which is like a tanner shade. I'm actually going to dip it in and take it on my bronzer a little bit, just to add another extra dimensional glow. I'm actually also going to take it up here to the forehead. And that might have been a little much, but here we are. I'm using a stippling brush for that. Yeah, that was a little much, but you know, so am I. And then you can take a little bit of that on your shoulder, but you know, I'm wearing a sweater, but if you are wearing a strapless dress, this will be especially flattering on this in the décolleté. You know, just for fun, I'm also going to take taffy, put that on my cheeks. Ooh, that's pretty. It's really pretty. And while we're at it, let's just take Sassy Grape and put it on the lid. I like that. So yeah, this palette's amazing. This is the Sweets one, by the way, just in case you were wondering. I am going to set everything again with the setting spray. I'm going to go in. I'm going to use all of the shades that I used in my crease on the lower lash line, and I'm just going to layer them one by one. And if you don't want this to happen, where you get a little bit of the eyeliner on the waterline, you can take a powder and set your tight line. I'm just not going to do that because I have really red eyes. I don't know if you can see, they're red right now. So I'm not going to do that today just because it would just not be great for me. For mascara, I'm going to first curl my eyelashes and then use the Benefit Roller Lash. I recommend a waterproof mascara. I just don't have one, so just use this. I find that even though it's not waterproof, it still does a really good job of not smudging, you know? And then to avoid getting transfer from this lash to here, do your bottom lashes first. Alright, and lastly, I'm going to go into my lips. And I have a lip treatment on, so I'm just going to wipe that off. If you are worried about germs, you can pretend that I used a makeup wipe. I'm going to use 4 lip products. However, if you have a husband like mine, I recommend sticking simply to a liquid lipstick because my husband does not like the feeling of glosses. So yeah, if your husband's like that too, or your fiance, then just use liquid lipstick. I'm going in with it all. I'm starting out with a lip liner. For nude liquid lipstick, I'm going to use the Too Faced Melted Matte Liquid Lipstick in the shade Child Star. As you can see, this is really light, so if you're any darker than me, you're going to want to use something more closer to your skin tone because this will be just way too light. It'll look crazy. It almost looks crazy on me, but I'm going to put a gloss over it after it dries. For gloss, I'm going to use the Marc Jacobs lip gloss in the shade Sugar Sugar. If you want something less dramatic, this is really new too. You could use something like White Russian or even something like a Sweet Peach lip gloss or a Flower Beauty lip gloss. Anything that's less nude, I mean. Just to be extra, I'm going to go back into that glow kit and I'm actually going to take a flat brush and I'm going to go into a mix of marshmallow and sassy grape. And just pat that into the center to give it like a highlight effect and kind of make your lips look a little bit bigger. Yeah, this is the completed wedding look. I plan on doing more in this series. I'd like to do an affordable option to all this. I plan on doing a warmer tone, a more dramatic, maybe a goth. I would like to make this a series, a continuous series for every season, but I don't know. I might run out of ideas. I might just do story times or things to talk about, just kind of anything. I'm trying to put content out on my channel that I'm really proud of. So I want to make sure that whatever I put out there, you know, are things that are helpful, but that aren't just makeup related because I feel like life isn't all about makeup. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. So I want to make, you know, my channel more socially aware of all those things. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, if you like this video, click that subscribe button to see more wedding videos. Click that like button, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys!